Hi, I'm Tom Eschen, and this is Power and Politics, where we discuss the big issues with people from across the political spectrum and even beyond when it comes to some of the advocates and the voices that are making a difference here in today's world, not just in the capital region, but beyond to New York State and even beyond that to our country as well. We continue our conversations today by bringing an issue that we hear in the State House all the time to the lawmakers themselves, Democratic lawmakers here in New York State, consistently calling on Republicans in Congress to help protect New Yorkers. And here we bring in Mike Lawler from New York's 17th Congressional District, a Republican, and ask him about a litany of issues that are impacting New Yorkers and everyone else in this country at this point. Thanks so much for watching and joining us once again. You can always listen to this too, wherever you get your podcasts at Power and Politics, or also on YouTube at CBS 6 Albany. Congressman Mike Lawler joins us now. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Congressman, over the past few weeks and months that we've been at the state capitol asking lawmakers, and when it comes to federal cuts, they'll say, well, go talk to our Republican congressmen and women. And so here you are, here I am, and I'll start by asking you that question. What are you doing to protect New Yorkers?
Well, funny enough on that, the governor and our legislative leaders have really done nothing to reach out to us and actually engage in a conversation. So they might want to do that themselves. As we work through this process, number one. Number two, the governor has proposed a $252 billion budget. The state legislative one-house budgets are in, the $260 billion range. This is unsustainable. New York has increased state spending by over $100 billion in the last decade. If somebody can explain to me how they intend to pay for that, I'd love to hear the explanation, because if their sole basis is that they're relying on the federal government to fund their reckless spending, it's not going to happen. The federal government is facing a $36 trillion debt. We are spending $7 trillion a year. The federal government itself is unsustainable at those rates. And so we are working through a process called reconciliation, which will focus on a number of key areas at the federal level. Number one, border security. Number two, strengthening our military and defense. Number three, increasing domestic production of energy. Number four, reining in the size and scope of the federal government across all agencies and departments. And number five, a tax bill that will focus on extending many of the provisions of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and making them permanent, while also increasing the cap on SALT. I've been very clear about that. That is a top priority for me. But understand one thing. If we don't pass a tax bill, it will be the single largest tax increase in American history. The standard deduction that was doubled for individuals and families, that will go away. And it will go back to what it was prior to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So there's a lot riding on this bill. And my Democratic colleagues in New York need to recognize that as they continue to increase state spending at the levels that they have, over $100 billion in a decade, that's unsustainable. And it's why New Yorkers are leaving in droves. It's why New York leads the nation in outmigration. People cannot afford to live in New York under the reckless one-party rule up in Albany.
Well, some of the key big ones that come up, Social Security, Medicaid, and I know that you've voiced your own concerns and support for supporting those programs, but I will ask, if you're going to protect Medicaid, how do you do that while also voting for a continuing resolution, what many people say would gut Medicaid?
So a few things here. Number one, Social Security cannot be touched under reconciliation, and I've been very clear about protecting Social Security. In fact, in the last Congress, I championed the Social Security Fairness Act to make sure that those seniors who rely on Social Security are not impacted by a separate pension that they may have and funds taken away from them. So we are working to protect these vital programs, Social Security, Medicare, to make sure that our seniors have the resources that they need and get the benefits that they're entitled to, that they paid into.
Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. That's what Elon Musk is saying. Do you agree with that?
No, it's not a Ponzi scheme, but the challenge is that if we don't figure out how to ensure long-term funding, it will go broke, and people are going to be negatively impacted by that. So it requires both parties to actually work together to address the issue of long-term funding for Social Security rather than using it as a political weapon, which is oftentimes what my Democratic colleagues have done, especially just this last campaign. My opponent used it as a political weapon and kept saying that I was going to cut Social Security when I made it very clear that I was not. Number two, with respect to Medicaid, Medicaid obviously is a vital program, but it is a means-tested program, and you have to qualify for it. And so we have individuals who are reliant on it, long-term care, seniors, those in the IDD community, pregnant women, children, that absolutely need these programs. But there's no question in a state like New York, where they're spending $1.2 billion on non-citizens and illegal immigrants, giving them health benefits, where they are allowing able-bodied adults to collect benefits without working. That is a challenge, and there is a cost affiliated with that. And when you look at the fact that the system is paying out roughly $50 billion a year in misallocated and misappropriated payments under the system, that is a challenge that we have to grapple with long term. And we want to protect this program for those who need it, those who rely on it. As I've said many times, folks in the IDD community, we want to make sure that they have the resources that they need. And you see right now what the governor is proposing with the CDPAP program. That is a Medicaid program. The governor is proposing significant changes that will kick upwards of 100,000 people off of the CDPAP rolls. So, as the governor and other Democrats attack Republicans down in Washington, I'm curious why nobody's asking them questions about the impacts of the CDPAP changes and how that will impact those on Medicaid here in New York. The fact is, New York spends about 83% greater on Medicaid than the average of the other 49 states in the country. It's the most expansive Medicaid program in the country. New York's rapid increase in Medicaid spending as they have expanded it obviously has driven up cost. And that's part of the reason why the governor is trying so desperately to change the CDPAP program. She wants to rein in cost. So to attack Republicans when they're saying, hey, we need to look at some of the issues surrounding Medicaid is laughable. The fact is that it is a program that we need to make sure is available and sustainable for the people who are eligible for it and rely on it, not for people who are milking the system or those that are scamming it, and certainly not illegal immigrants. That is not a good use of taxpayer money.
Will the everyday American feel an impact from some of these cuts, tariffs, whatever it's going to be anytime soon? Because I feel like people might be looking at what's going on with Doge and saying, well, I haven't seen any money in my pocket just yet. What do you make of that?
Well, again, think about what we're talking about in terms of numbers. We're talking about $7 trillion budgets on an annual basis. Over the next 10 years, we're projected to spend anywhere between $80 to $100 trillion. And we're talking about $1.5 trillion in savings over the next 10 years. $1.5 trillion versus spending $80 to $100 trillion over the next decade. The fact is that we have to rein in the size and scope of the federal government. And there's always going to be issues that arise and people raise questions or concerns, and we have to address those. But the fact is that if we continue to spend at the trajectory that we're spending, our country is going to go broke. And we are paying over $1 trillion in interest on an annual basis, which is more than we are paying for the Department of Defense. And everybody will say quietly, oh, yeah, no, that's a problem. We got to do something about it. But the moment you try to do something about it, obviously, everybody starts, objecting. And so, look, these are serious challenges. These are serious issues that we have to deal with. We're not going to agree on everything. I don't agree with every decision that is being made by the Trump administration or by the Department of Government Efficiency. And when I don't, I speak out and I push back against it and try to find a resolution. For instance, when it comes to Social Security, I have pushed back against the effort to shut down some of these hearing offices. Obviously, there's a argument that they are making, which is by and large, these hearing offices are not being utilized. 80% of Social Security hearings are now virtual. And so it's a lot of space that is being paid for that is not necessarily being used. The field offices themselves are not being shut down. And so what I'm trying to do is see if there's a way to get the hearing office to utilize some of the space that the field offices use so that we can at least make sure that for those that cannot have a hearing virtually, they have a place to go that is within driving distance to them. So there's a lot of work ahead, and we just have to keep working through it.
Elise Stefanik, of course, her nomination pulled from the United Nations role that she would have in the United States. Were you ever concerned about that seat?
No, I know we would have held on to the seat. I think the concern, of course, was what Governor Hochul was trying to do, playing games in terms of trying to shift the date and change the law. And the fact is, obviously, we have a very tight majority. And Elise has been a great member, a great leader. She would have been a phenomenal ambassador to the United Nations, arguably the best we ever had. And I do believe, at some point there will be other opportunities for her in the administration, as the president said in his statement. On a personal level, I feel bad for Elise. She earned that opportunity. She was the first one nominated out of the gate. And again, having worked with her and known her for over a decade, I know Elise to be a leader. I know Elise to, certainly be a champion for her district. I know she will continue to represent her district extremely well. And certainly, as a friend and colleague, I'm glad to have her stay in Congress. But, I know this was a great opportunity for her that she, I know, would have excelled in. And so, we'll see what comes in the future. But Elise has been a great representative of the North Country and will continue to do so.
So you had no concerns about the ticket being split by anybody or
No.
any of that? Okay.
No.
More so the vacancy, the time of the vacancy.
It was, yeah, the timing of the vacancy and the impact that might have if the governor and the state legislature tried to slip something into the budget and change the law, and which they're prone to do in Albany.
I also wanted to ask you about the Signal app issue. Of course, when it comes to transparency, the government, the federal government, they had a couple of different messages. One that it was a mistake, one that it was a hoax. Were you satisfied with how the federal administration reacted to this after that?
Look, I don't think there's any question it was a mistake. It shouldn't have happened. Anytime you're dealing with classified or sensitive information, you have to take all precaution and make sure that it is done in a secure way. And while CISA under the Biden administration did issue guidance on the usage of Signal and said and encouraged it, the fact is, no matter how secure it may be, there are still threats, and our adversaries certainly are always looking to find weaknesses in communication systems. So from my standpoint, they need to take all precaution and make sure there are safeguards in place to avoid that ever happening again. I don't think there needs to be a firing of anybody. I think the fact is it was a mistake. They need to own it and keep moving.
I also, of course, have one on tariffs here today. And we heard some individuals from the North Country actually saying tourism is down ever since this tariff conversation even began. And that's a big concern for them with this retaliatory tariff issue and this whole tariff war that's going on right now. Is this something that you see ending or want to end?
Look, I think the objective of the president is to actually bring about free and fair trade. When you look at tariffs, the United States is on the low end. We have allies like India that have 100% tariff on U.S. Goods. And so the objective is to actually bring about fair trade, to bring down overall costs, to bring manufacturing back to the United States, which is critical. I think as a short-term negotiation tool, it can be rather effective. And certainly we're seeing Canada and Mexico engaging with the administration for the purpose of negotiation. So, look, I certainly understand the immediate concern. I think long term, if the tariff is used as a negotiating tool, it can be very, very effective long term to helping reduce overall costs, bring back jobs to the U.S., and grow our economy. And I think that's what the president's looking at.
You recently were named the most effective freshman lawmaker at the Capitol. Where have you found the most common ground on?
Well, look, in the last Congress, I was proud of the fact that we passed 11 bills through the House. 6 of them were signed into law by President Biden, all of them with broad bipartisan support. A lot of my work has been on foreign affairs, given my position on the committee and serving as chair of the Middle East and North Africa subcommittee, as well as on financial services. But I think there's so much opportunity for us to work together. The politics are what they are, unfortunately, and both sides certainly engage in the politics. But right now, Republicans have control of Congress and the White House, and I think it's incumbent on my Democratic colleagues to find area of opportunity to work with the administration, work with the majorities. When I was in the state legislature, I always found opportunity to work together with my Democratic colleagues who were in the majority. And as a member of Congress in my first term, obviously I was rated the 4th most bipartisan member. And we had a Democrat in the White House and a Democrat-controlled Senate. You have to be willing to work together. And, we saw just 2 weeks ago on the CR, many of my Democratic colleagues voted to shut the government down. I don't know who that serves other than a political purpose. The fact is, shutting the government down would have been disastrous. And so we got to find ways to work together. I get the politics. I get where the bases of each party are. But if we're not willing to engage with each other in a constructive way, the only people that get hurt by that really are the American people. And so I will continue to do that. I will continue to engage my colleagues. There's so much we can work together on, from the border and the fentanyl crisis to the economy and jobs, and obviously the international crises around the globe. So we'll keep working and try to find area of commonality.
One more before we go. Any thoughts on Andrew Cuomo running for mayor in New York City?
Look, his record speaks for itself. He signed cashless bail into law. He signed congestion pricing into law. He made New York a sanctuary state. The fact is, New Yorkers are leaving in droves because of the cost of living and the quality of life, and he played a big part in that. And he needs to own that record and acknowledge the mistakes that were made under his leadership. Obviously, New York City voters are going to make a determination. I think it does speak volumes to the fact that he's leading in the polls. It says a lot about the other candidates and frankly, how bad they are. But we'll see what happens come primary day.
Congressman, thanks for joining us today. And as we now know, when we speak about all those other candidates, Eric Adams planning to run as an independent in New York's mayoral election coming up here in the fall now at that point. Thanks so much for joining us here on Power and Politics. Of course, you can watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts at Power and Politics, so subscribe today. You can also watch the full conversations on YouTube at CBS 6 Albany. We'll see you next time.